Okay, so we're recording. So I think it's worth pointing out that rigging in Toon Boom is, and this is kind of a reminder, rigging in Toon Boom is not a science, really, right? There's not a perfect way to rig this character. You kind of have to guess a little bit of what controls you think you might need, what drawings you think you might need. And so some of you may be at a point right now where you're like, oh, I drew this wrong, or oh, I rigged this wrong, or oh, like you may start animating and it may not respond the way you want it to. And that's going to happen to all of us. Like you kind of have to do a little bit of animation to see if it is giving you what you want. And inevitably or invariably, you are going to find things that you need on your character, or you want your character to be able to do that you haven't prepared for, right? Or you prepared for something you didn't even need, right? Maybe you put a bunch of deformers all over your character's like clothes or something like that, and then once you animate it, you realize that wasn't even necessary because those things aren't going to move that much, right? So I'm making predictions on it. Some of my predictions will be wrong. That's the same with you. You can always go back and rework it. Now, what I like to do is I like to try to get my character set up where I don't have any keyframes anywhere on my rig, right? And I also like, my hair is going to disappear. I also like to save this out as a named file, so I'll know that this is the clean rig, right? If I do some animation, I like it, everything's working well, and I want to do another animation, I can always go back to this rig file and just start using it again, right? If I make changes to the rig, like if I pose it out, I realize there's some things I need to change, I change in it. Hopefully at this point I could go back and delete all of my keyframes and just get back to a clean version of the rig that is not posed, right? That's not always the case. Sometimes things get kind of permanently changed. But you're going to kind of iterate, and animating with this character is how you learn about it, like how you learn what you need. A lot of times I do this with 3D rigs too. Like after I do sort of my first pass on the rigging, I do a test animation to see if it's working the way I want it to. And if it's not, then I can fix it, right? Before I actually have to do whatever the important animation is. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do my test animation, and my test animation is going to be something very common, which is a walk cycle. We'll talk briefly about walk cycles, but first I wanted to show you, again, I've saved my character rig 0, or 01, right? And that means if I made some changes to it, I can save it as 02, and I know which version of my rig I'm in. Something else I've done, I've gone through here, and everywhere that I have a drawing, I have locked that drawing. Put a little lock on that layer, just so I don't accidentally set any keyframes on that. What that means is if I highlight everything in this rig and set a keyframe there, it will set a keyframe on all of my pegs, all of my deformers, but not my drawings, right? So I do that, and then I just unlock the drawings as I need them. Like if I need to make a change to a drawing, I can unlock that. So that's one of the ways I like to work. And sort of the last thing is I'll show you sort of what I've kind of settled on for my character. Now, many of you have recognized that like you open it up and it looks like all your deformers are gone. That's not really the case. If you just highlight everything, click this little circle with the X on here, all of your deformers will come back. You can also click is it this one that will, one of them will hide it again, but apparently not. Yeah, show the selected deformation chain. So once I get to this point, I can see all my deformations on my character. Again, I use this transform tool to edit the deformations. So you'll see I've sort of changed the hair. Right now I have two little stalks here that can both be edited around. I can get a little bit of motion on that. Right? I have her head control here, the body control, which I'm going to use more than anything else, and this control. Ooh, I just had an idea. And then for my legs, I have the spline deformer as well, so I can get stuff like this. Right? Again, all of these deformers, I have a peg above them. So if I want to go over here to my left arm, I can choose my left arm peg, right? And then I can move that around wherever I want to. I can rotate it, and I can even scale it if I need to make it bigger, right? So I have a peg that just kind of allows me to control that whole unit. It just occurred to me while I was sitting here doing this that one of the things that might be really nice to have is the ability to move both of the arms together. Now that sounds silly, but like a peg that would drive both of my arm pegs. And the reason for that is because I have a feeling I'm going to do some like changes throughout this animation to the character's head, and my character's arms are going to get out of place, and I'll just want to be able to move both of them back to sort of their root. That's sort of a correction tool. I can still do that manually now just by grabbing both of my arm pegs and moving them around like that. So I don't know. I'll play around with this and see if that's something I need. I'm not really going to add it to this one, but that might be something that after I do this animation, I'm like, you know what, that'll make my life easier, is if I have that extra arm pegs. Yes?
I just have a question about rigging first for animating.
All right.
How do you, if you have two different drawings, right, to swap between,
Mm-hmm.
do you rig them? Like, what if I want both of them then, but the rig's only with one drawing?
Ooh, that's a good question. Do you need both of them to bend?
Yeah. Or at least one more than the other.
I think there's two different things you could do there. One is you could have the drawing swap, and then you could try to have a deformer that would manipulate both of them. The deformer is manipulating the layer, or deforming the layer. So if it's like, let's say like your eyeball, right? You wanted that eyeball to be able to stretch, but you also wanted a squinted version that's able to stretch as well. You would just put the deformer on one of the drawings, and then when you do the second drawing, that same deformer hopefully will warp the layer the correct way there too. So you can do like some experimenting on that. There is a way to swap deformers, like as you swap drawings, and I can't remember it right off the top of my head. It has to do with this little drop-down menu right here though. And we can get into that maybe with some more advanced ones. Right now I would say, like if it's is it the foot? Yeah. So right now I would say try to rig the one that you think you're going to need to deform the most, and try to see if that deformation can be, sort of, if you can kind of double dip with the other drawing too, and if not, then we'll have to do something a little more complex. Does that make sense? Other questions?
Can you copy and paste the deformations and the drawings and all of it?
Are you making like a duplicate of it?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I think a deformation is just it's like any other node, right? Like if I needed a second version of this arm, I could grab all of these things here and do Control C, Control V. And that did not seem to work at all. Did I even select everything? Control C, Control V, yeah. And it pastes all of them. And then what I think I should have then is a separate, or a second arm that that I could plug into my composite node so you can see it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. I think any of the nodes in here you can copy and paste. I'm not 100% sure how their relations to each other will work, because certain things are kind of specific to that drawing. Other questions, comments, ideas? So I'm just curious before we jump into this. I'm loving this thing is becoming so robust. I was like reading it on the way up here. It's like, oh, this is fun. But I guess I should have expected that with the 2D animation class. Anybody else needing the attendance sheet? Did I miss anybody? Okay. Back. Okay, so just honest answers here. How many of you really are not enjoying this rigging part of it?
I'm terrified of this
Several people are not enjoying this at all.
I'm not having as much fun with it as I was with the frame by frame stuff.
How many of you would agree with that sentence? How many of you really like the frame by frame part more than the rigging? Right. How many of you like the rigging more? Two people. Okay. Is that what it is? Like you recognize that? Okay. Anybody else want to get to the sheet? Look at that. Goodness. I get it. I do. I realize that it's kind of complex, right? Like, hopefully today we'll show you why it's beneficial. I think that again, recognize that I'm going to go back to that phrase, limited animation. What we're doing is a type of limited animation. And so a lot of productions, just to be able to get it done in a cost-effective way, use limited animation. I think I understand that idea of wanting to draw and have complete control over it. Hopefully within the next few weeks here, you'll start to see a way to make your hybrid of that. And that's why the last half of this class, or well, not quite half, but the last section of this class, the last third of this class, is you making your own productions, right? So that means after you've learned all the tools, you will adapt it to what it is whatever workflow that you like. Because there's not really it's not two. It's not frame by frame or rigging. It's all a hybrid of the two, right? Even if you're doing frame by frame animation, if you want to get a lot of that done, you have to do limited animation in the way frame by frame animation was done in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, right? So just out of curiosity, what is it about the rigging that is not fun for you? Is it that you don't quite get how to do it?
I think it's just that it's so different from 3D that we kind of work everything in Maya, right? And if you want everything to move all together, it's so easy to just attach everything. But Toonboom is so very meticulous about it that it's just you're thinking about so many things at once. And you can't I don't know, that's for me at least, but I feel like there's so much more than just a 3D model.
Oh, that's interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Other comments?
So I feel like the rigging gives me less control of the character than the hands-on animation.
Mm-hmm.
So if this thing is a little bit wrong, I can't fix it as easily as I can with the frame by frame.
Mm-hmm. So I think that what is the phrase? It's cheap. Oh, let's see. Cheap, good, fast. You can only have two, right? Which two do you want? Do you want it good and fast? Well, it's going to be expensive because you have to throw a lot of people at that. You have to throw a lot of everybody gets 2 seconds of animation, and we have 50 animators, right? That's how you get that done. If you want it cheap and fast, it's really hard to get it good, right? So it's mixing those three, and I think in this case, you're right, you're losing some control at the cost of doing it faster or being able to do more of it in a shorter amount of time. Other comments? I think you had a couple of hands over here.
Mostly just my main problem is getting the animation to look less weight sensitive.
can I try to rephrase that for you in another way? It's hard when you're rigging to hide the fact that you rigged it.
Yes.
Right? Like, it's like, you want it to look like something that is not, I cut out some construction paper and I'm wiggling it around, right? And that is where some of the deformers come in. That's where when we start frame by framing some elements of it, hopefully we can hide some of that. That's why I started with a robot, is because you can do more pieces of it with that. Yeah, sure.
It's just like, so this is my first time reading the Toon Boom, and I have this like nagging feeling. It's just like, it should be simpler than it is, and it should look better than it does. Like, it seems, like with the notes especially, it seems like you can like, spruce it up, but at the end of the day, you have a bunch of spaghetti like lines in the graph editor, and you still have to comb through them, and it just seems like there has to be a better way, and at the end of it, it still doesn't look the right way. And that's just like my gut.
No, that's no. Does anybody is anybody having issues with it because they just like the process of drawing every frame? Is that a workflow? Like when we did the jumping animation, does anybody just really enjoy that process? So there are going to be a couple people, and that's fine. And I think that for some of those, like different shots, just sometimes require that, right? You just have to draw every frame.
I feel like I have like the opposite viewpoint on it because I'm not that good of like a drawing artist. I feel like I have more control, like I have more possibilities I'm able to do with a rig versus having to draw everything frame by frame. I have no confidence in myself whatsoever to be able to draw that frame by frame and make it look good.
Well, and I think that there is an element of that, and like it's the same way of like some people like sketching in Photoshop, and they can just like open up Photoshop and make something beautiful in like 30 minutes. And some people are like, nope, I'm going to open up Illustrator. I'm going to take 4 hours editing every Bezier handle to get this exactly right. And I think that there may be, like, I'm kind of that way too. I don't trust my drawing abilities to nail it every drawing. And so that's why I end up liking the rigging part of it. But I get what you're saying. Like both of you, Charlie and you're both kind of hitting that point of like, you would expect it to I like what you said, like, you have a feeling this should look better.
Yeah, it should just work better than it does.
Yeah, so I feel like there's still some stuff missing in Toon that they're getting better at. They have something in there now called a master controller, which is just this invisible object you can, well, it's not invisible, it's invisible when it renders, that you can edit, and it will drive multiple parts of this by itself. Like you can create like 3 different poses for this character's body and use this one control to blend in between those 3 poses. I think really where this feels clunky to us animators who are used to Maya is like selecting stuff. Like look at this mess, right? Like that is just a mess. I'm going to sort of organize mine a little bit clearer here in a minute. But yeah, that can be a pain. We can also move all, like once we've gotten these pegs and everything organized in the node view, we can use our node view as a selector. I like having 2 monitors. You can't always see my second monitor, but what a lot of times I'll do is I'll pull this off and full screen it, because then this is my character, right? And I could be picking stuff from here without even having to know what it is, right? I could be like, okay, I'm going to grab the character's body. I recognize that this is the upper arm, right? Like I can. It's small buttons, but this is kind of like a character picker in 3D. And if we push some of this in a little closer, it may even, you could probably spend a little bit of time organizing some of this to make this even more usable. I don't know. I may be wrong about that, but this is a way that I often pick stuff when I'm using 2 monitors, is because then I can get to this, and I can recognize that these light green pegs are what I want to select most often. That doesn't really help when I'm animating in here because then I would be selecting stuff on the other screen. You're not going to be able to see it as well. So I'm going to still try to minimize that. Other things that this is, you either like this or you don't like this, and reasons for that. Yeah, they both have good qualities. What were you gonna say again?
This is someone coming from someone who's used Tune for a little bit. I started in it last semester, and kind of started getting around the workflow where you use both the frame by frame and the rigging.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, I don't use just one for every single project. Like there's some things where you want to go frame by frame with the base and different things with your snare frames and whatever. So.
Yeah, I think you can think of that in Maya, like you create all of the controllers you need to be able to get whatever pose you need out of your character, right? And that's not efficient in 2D, right? Like if I need my character to, like, if their muscle to bulge when they like make this pose, I have to build something in that rig that deforms the mesh the way I want it to. It's not like I'm like, well, for this one frame, I'm just gonna do a completely different arm model, right? And make it look exactly the way I want. And that is something we can do in here. And so what's going to happen is, as you're animating with this rig, there's going to be some pose that you may not feel like you can actually get, right? Like you're having trouble achieving that pose. When you get to that point, like, don't try to force the rig to do that pose. If you can't, just ask yourself, like, I mean, I could just hide that entire layer and do a single drawing that hits the pose I need, and then just continue with the rig after that pose, right? So like you can just do it on the fly. You can do a percentage of frame by frame animation in anything you want, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start animating this. I am going to do a little cleanup in here, just to make this cleaner here where I can see it. I'm going to minimize everything up to the pegs. Right? So I don't need that. I don't really need to say that lag either, but I guess I don't need that. I don't need nose. I need the eye stuff. So this will make some of my animation a little better. That. That's right. And so I hit a bunch of stuff. So now mostly I'm looking at my pegs, right? And this should help a little bit. What's this? Outside. I don't necessarily need to be able to animate that either. It doesn't matter. Okay. So, has anybody here never animated a walk cycle? I know we kind of all had to do something in the principles class. So I'm going to refer back to the old standard for walk cycles, which is Richard Williams' book from Animator Survival Kit. The four main poses we need to hit, right? So just a quick recap on this. It's the contact pose, the down pose, the passing pose, and the up, right? And that gives you half of a cycle. Right, that's one half. That's like a full step through to getting you back to your contact. Right. To get this to loop forever, we have to do those same four poses again on the other side. Right. Contact, down, passing, and up. A quick reminder of what these are. Contact is the place where your foot is making contact, and the front. It's the first instant your foot is making contact. The last instant your rear foot is making contact before it sort of pushes off. Your down is where your body is, or your legs are absorbing the weight from that impact of the contact. And that's the lowest pose in terms of your hips up and down movement. Your passing pose is where your rear leg is passing forward. It's also where both of your arms are passing side by side. Your up pose, I always like to think of a walk cycle as like this like repetitive pole vault. Right? It's like you're sort of launching over your leg. this is where you're starting to fall back over that other side, right? Like you're falling forward and you have to throw your leg out to catch yourself on that next contact, right? So you've all probably heard my spiel on this. You've heard my walkthroughs on it, and I can even pull up older YouTube videos and stuff if we need them. So what I'm going to do, I know I need a keyframe on everything, right? So I'm going to minimize all the way down to the character peg. Actually, I'm going to minimize all the way down to the body peg. I'm going to click the body peg, and I'm going to hit F6. So watch what happens when I do that. I hit F6, then when I expand back out there, everything that could be keyed underneath that got a keyframe. Now I'm going to use this to create my starting pose for this. And for me, I'm going to have to think about this for a second. Often we start with a contact, but that's because Richard Williams made this really nice drawing for us. It's not always the best place to start. Sometimes you want to start with the passing pose. Because the passing pose is one that's easy to kind of blend into. I think I'm going to risk it. I'm going to start with the contact pose just as my starting pose. And I'm going to start with a contact pose that is most intuitive considering my character's actual pose, like from the drawing, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of get my legs out here, or my arms out here. So if this is the contact pose, my arms are going to be doing the opposite of what my legs are doing, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and move this arm forward and rotate it, something like this. Go ahead and get in here in my manipulation tool, and something like this, right? My other arm, I'm going to do the opposite with it, right? I'm going to pull it back to here. So do something like this. Now here's where we can get kind of neat with this. Right? My hand peg right here, I need that to feel like it's sort of flipped the other way, like kind of palm out. I want to try this and see if it works. Like, what if I just scaled it like this? Yeah, that kind of works. Right? And then I'm going to go ahead and get this sort of dragging along behind. I'm gonna push the cartooniness in this. So okay, so that's my contact, and I did this, I reversed the arms because I didn't want to reverse the feet for the first pose. So for this one, I may go ahead and just rotate just a little bit here to keep my contact pose of pushing off of this back foot, the front foot being very straight, right? So I'm going to exaggerate this some more. I'm going to really kind of push off with this back foot, like this. And for my foot peg right here, rotate it forward like that. Now for my other leg, I'm going to really push it too. I'm going to stretch this contact pose. Something like this. Rotate. I'm going to stretch it out here. I'm maybe even going to reverse it a little bit, right? Yeah, like something really cartoony out of this. Now, I'm probably going to go back and reanimate these things bouncing later, and I may even do a little bit of the body work later, but I will do just a little bit right now of the character kind of dragging back like this on the head and chest. And when I do that, that messes up my arms. I kind of have to go put those back where I found them, or where I had them. So maybe something like this, right? I'll probably eventually end up redoing my eyes animation anyway, but just to kind of keep them both in there. I'm looking forward. I'll go ahead and pose her eyes a little bit more forward. And I may even want to get like her nose and mouth just a little bit more in this direction. Just do the nose that way, not the mouth. There we go. Just kind of making it feel like her head is turned a little bit. I could probably even grab her right eye and push that one a little bit closer, just to get her head sort of turned in that direction a little bit more. Okay? So I'm going to start here with my contact pose. That should have sort of stuck. Right? So a walk cycle, depending on the speed, usually takes about a second for a cycle. Right? 1/1000. Like that's about how long. That's a brisk walk, like you're trying to get to work or something, like you're running a touch late for class. You know you can make it up. You're going to get there on time, but you're not lollygagging, right? So I may stretch this out a little bit more, maybe make it something like 30 frames, see how that feels, maybe 32, just to keep her a little bit more slow and sort of relaxed feeling, right? So let's go out here. I'll say about 32. I want to minimize all this up to the body, go to frame 32, and hit F6. Right? So now I have my 2 keyframes for this animation. So let's go about halfway between this. I think that's going to be, let me do some math. Halfway between 32, is that 18? 16, 18. I may have to shift some of these later. Let's just try that. So this is where I'm going to make my second contact pose. This is actually a pretty easy one for me because I don't need to really change the body that much, right? It's going to be the same sort of pose on the body. I do need to change the legs and arms completely though. Like I'm going to invert this pose for them, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and hit F6, put a keyframe on everything, and then I can expand this back out. And I'll go ahead and repose sort of the opposite of this again, right? So go over here. Take. Again, I'll grab left hand. Mirror that. Oh man, no. No, that is not what I wanted. This. Really flip that. I'm not intentionally like getting exactly the same pose, but it'd be nice to have something close. The other arm. Quickly move this here. Soften that just a little bit. And then the legs are going to be sort of the same way. I'm just going to kind of reverse those. This one. We don't want that foot. That. Peg. And so I'm just going to kind of scrub to see what I'm getting something similar. That was a little off. Oh, I wanted to do. Okay. It's not terrible. Now, something else I can do, and this is a little bit of a trick we're going to look at later, right? If I want to make it look like her head's kind of turning a little bit, like there's certain perspective tricks that we can play, right? Like I could make it, on this pose, I could grab her right eye, right, and I can move it further away, or further this way. Go ahead and grab her left eye, move it a little bit further this way. And then with both of them, I could scale them up just a smidge. And so, see how that kind of looks like it gets a little bit closer to us, right? The other thing I could do is I could grab her nose, kind of do the same thing. I could move it back this way, even rotate it just a touch, possibly even scale it up just a smidge. Touch too much. And again, the same thing with the mouth. Scale it up. I'm apparently really liking to use the word smidge lately, just a smidge. And so that very subtle change, hopefully, gives us a little bit of depth in the face. All right? So we're just kind of faking some stuff there. Right? I think I actually rotated it a touch too much on the mouth. And okay. So just to kind of pull back away from this and watch it, let's see what it's looking like so far. Okay. First thing, let's go ahead and limit our timeline to that. And set this to loop. If we hit play. Okay, not looking great yet. It's all right. So there's a reason that I always Google this image, right? It's because a lot of people will see that not looking great yet and think that they've done something wrong. You haven't. You just have to trust this process, right? It's this process of these 4 poses. Like this is almost a science, right? You literally can't walk without all 4 of these poses, right? You require all 4 of these for physical locomotion to take place, right? And so this, to me, the walk cycle always looks broken until all 4 of these poses are in there. So just trust the process, trust that you understand what's going on in all of them. So one of the things I do kind of feel like mine needs is maybe like some representative of what the floor is, right? I'm going to go ahead and stop this, and just to give myself something to think about as the floor, I will create a new drawing. We'll call this floor. And for this, just so I can kind of see it, I'm going to create a little box. I think I am. Apparently I'm not. What am I doing? Why am I not able to? Oh, it's really small. So I've created a little box there. I will fill it with this blue color. And of course I will move this all the way to the bottom of everything, just so we can kind of see this, right? I'm also going to go ahead and move that floor up just a little bit. There we go. I think this will just make it feel like it makes more sense to be able to think about where the floor is, right? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start making those other poses. Now, for me, I always subdivide. If this is my contact pose, I do my passing pose next. And that's because if I do that, I start to get some stuff for free, right? So let's just go ahead about halfway through here. I know my spacing, I'm going to have to rethink these here in a bit. Go ahead and lock that floor too. So let's say right about there, go ahead and hit F6. Now the reason I go to my passing pose is you'll notice I have some of it already in place, right? Like it's kind of halfway there, right? It's just not very good. So I can go ahead and start posing this. First thing, sort of get my leg passing pose. This is the front leg. This is the rear leg. So I have to remember, which way is this going? Oh, going the wrong way. I did that backwards. So this is the one that's supposed to be on the ground. This is the one that's passing forward. So I'm really going to exaggerate that leg passing forward. Let's do that. And I'm also going to kind of look at the path of my leg here. So if I look at how this foot hits the ground and goes backwards, it's like it's dipping down there. So just to sort of try to keep this in some semblance of reality, I'm going to pull this up a little bit to make it kind of feel like this is following kind of a straight line, right? I think that means that this is in the wrong place too. Alex, just kind of get that feeling that it's hitting the ground. Now, something I am going to consider, my character's body placement. For this, I'm going to move the body up just a little bit, because usually oh really, I forgot that I did that. Oh, that's all right. So that's a rigging thing I would reconsider. I'm not for sure I really want the body peg controlling the legs. I can unpin that now, but I'm not going to do that right now. Let me just keep animating on it and see if that's good or bad. Right. Get a little bit of the body going up now. And I'm trying to maintain that leg's position overall. I'm also going to go ahead and rotate this foot back. Now, when we talk about needing to do like a new drawing on this may be somewhere where I decide to do that, right? Like I may not be completely happy with how this foot is deforming here, right? Like it's not really deforming at all. Right? And I may want that toe to kind of kick back. So this is a place where I could do a drawing substitution if I wanted to. So I can extend this out. It's right there, it's my right foot. I can unlock that if I wanted to. And on this drawing, I could just make a duplicate drawing, right there, and then use like maybe the envelope tool to change this drawing. I have both. To change this drawing just to be a little different, right? So I'm not actually drawing anything new. I'm changing my my duplicate of this drawing to sort of have a different shape to it, right? So it looks like it's kind of kicking back. Now, again, this is a completely new drawing though. So what's going to happen is on that frame, it's going to kick back. Maybe that's not where I want it. If I want that a little earlier, I can always slide that forward, happen like right there. And then whenever I'm ready for that to sort of go back to the new drawing, let's say like right through here somewhere, I can go up here to my library, and this is such an ugly way of looking at it. And instead of being on frame 2, I can go to frame 1. I'm actually going to even have that toe kicking back a few frames earlier. Okay. Does that make sense what I just did there? Okay. So that's what I'm saying, like on the fly, like I could have drawn a completely new drawing there. I just made a duplicate of that one and warped it enough to where it gave me the solution I needed. And I didn't have to rig it, I just created it, right? Like I just made a new thing. So I may do that the same with this next one as well. I'm going to go ahead and relock my foot, minimize this back down to the body. Now, I pretty much am wanting, oh wait, you know what I haven't done? I haven't done anything to the arms. Let's fix those arms, just to give them some more characters. How they're going back from here to here, I really want to drag them a lot, right? I want them to have this like dragging from the upper part of the arm. So I'm going to go ahead and have it happening in like an arc, something like this. And then on my deformer, I'm going to drag it back like a lot. Like this. So at least on the dragging back, I'm kind of liking how that's starting to look. Still got way more to do on it, but the dragging forward, we don't really even see what's happening. It's happening behind our character, but I do know it's not working right. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of make it work right. If you want to see what it's doing, the answer may be to just sort of go look at that layer or hide the body layer. And hide the body there so I can see what this arm is doing. Now, in the name of getting like a pretty decent silhouette, I maybe would want to keep that hand still visible a little bit, right? And that way it's kind of like drifting out like that, flipping through, right? All right. Go back up to the body, select that body tag. Now, I want pretty much this same pose, except for I want the arms and legs to be a little different, right? There's just a lot of things about this pose that I want to keep. I don't really want the changes I made to the eyes, but I do want the changes I made to the body. So I don't know. Let's just try this. I'm going to click this, right click it, and say I want to copy cells. I want to copy the key pose. Copy cells from timeline. I think this works. Let's try it and make sure it doesn't add them to those drawings of the foot as well. So if I go out here, right click, paste cells in the timeline, you'll see it didn't do anything to my drawing there. So now I get that same drawing again. Now the things I don't really want to have those keyframes, I can go ahead and take those off of it. And mainly that was the stuff in the face, right? The eyes, actually all of this stuff in the eyes here. I'm going to go ahead and delete those keyframes. And the reason I'm doing that is so I get that natural transition back. So now I can hit F5 or F6 again to put those back in. Now, I know that there's a lot of stuff in this transition with the feet that are all wrong now. So I could also, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and get rid of these, the leg keyframes. If I want to. You know, I may go ahead and do the arms and the legs too. So just delete those keyframes. And I'll go ahead and plus. Those as well. And the right arm. And so really all I got was the body motion out of it. I don't know if it really helped me very much to save that stuff. But now I can go back up here to the body, right there, F6, to make sure I have a keyframe on everything, and sort of repose these the way I want them to. So again, characters, this time it's the character's left leg that's passing forward, right? So I can go in here, my move tool. All right, get that. I'm going to get my right foot, just sort of rotate that a little bit. But I'm going to use my transform tool to get this really crazy drag behind. I'm going to go ahead and do that toe thing again on it. Let's see how it's feeling. Right, like so right there. I wouldn't mind having a different toe for that. So that's going to be it's the left foot, isn't it? Left leg, left foot. It's that one right there. I'm going to go ahead and unlock it. Again, I'm going to make a new drawing that's a duplicate. And then I'll use my envelope tool here to select that and just work the drawing to get the kicking back pose that I want. And then by the end of this, I'll just go ahead and switch back to drawing one. Right? So what you'll see is it just kicks back. I have it kicking back right there. I'll just go ahead and shift that kickback key on this, like this. So it feels like it kicks back as he's, there we go. And then I can go ahead and relock the foot. I don't think I've done anything to the arms yet on this. Again, in this one, the arm, this rear arm is dragging forward. So go ahead, my right arm, move tool on that. I want that to kind of arc down, but again, I do want that really big drag in it. Like I can really exaggerate it. I wonder how that would look. Let's see. It's kind of neat. We may use that. Let's swing it deeper though. Okay, and the way the arm is coming back, just to hide the body so we can see it, is just a little dull. So I'll go ahead and in order to kind of keep an arc, I am probably going to go ahead and move the left arm peg down just a little bit. There we go. So we have our contact, we have our passing. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, she's trying. It's not bad. Like it's not great, but it's not bad, right? I feel like the body, I did a lot of rigging to the body and I haven't really been using much of that at all. I'm going to get all my poses in there and then I think I'm going to go in and sort of add a little bit of bounce to the body to get a little bit of that change to it. I feel like I'm going to have a hard time keeping track of all of that as I'm posing it. So I'm going to get my poses in and sort of almost straight ahead some of that. And the same with the hair. I'm going to add some of that. Definitely her eyes need a blink every now and then or something, or some eye darts just to keep that alive. Okay, but again, this is just 2 of the 4 poses, all right? So here's where it always kind of starts to fall apart. When I do the down pose, it's going to look like I'm breaking everything. And I kind of am, but that's because it's kind of a yin and yang thing, right? The down pose doesn't make sense without the up pose, right? Right now it's kind of like the character is just sort of gliding along, right? When I get that down pose in there, it's going to feel like she's like sort of like losing her balance for just a second. There's going to be like a pop in it, right? And that's because really what we're getting is a sine wave. We're getting this wave function that's happening. I'm putting the down part of the wave without putting the up part of the wave. So I'm going to do the down. It's going to feel broken. Trust the process. Before I do that, though, I'm actually really happy with where this is looking so far. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Save as new version. We'll call this character walk-01. Okay. So my down pose is halfway between my contact and my up. Okay. Again, minimize to the body. Let's put it about there. F6. Now, some of the elements of the down pose, again, the hips drop to their lowest point. You'll notice that the contact and the passing are about level with each other, but the hips drop to their lowest point. The up point is their highest point, right? So I need to push them down. I need to get that knee bent. I need to get that foot flat, and I need that back foot to feel like it's kicking off, right? So let's see what we get out of that. Right now, none of that's really happening. So let's get the body down. Push the body down. Now that's going to mess up our feet, right? The body's going to look right, but the feet are going to kind of go through the floor. So that means I'm going to have to kind of readjust that contact foot. In this case, it's my left leg. Go ahead and push that up. And I definitely want to get that bend in it that we're seeing in our contact pose, right? This bend in the knee, because that's how we know we've absorbed the weight. Right? So I'm going to use this and get that bend in it. I can even like get that bend a little sharper if I want to, something like this maybe. And let's see what that looks like in comparison. That's working, but not feeling like it's in the right spot. Right? Maybe something like that. So it's contacting there, and I want them to feel like it really sinks in there. So pull it on out there a little bit more. And I think the other thing is I'm going to rotate that foot flat. Okay. Now the rear foot, I want it to really feel like it's kicking off. So I want to exaggerate that, right? If this is where the pose was before, instead of just starting to drift back, I'm really going to like, let's kick it back there a lot, right? What's that do? It's not bad. So that could be worse. So that's the down. Now the arms are going to do sort of a transition between these two, right? So I get this like drag down to here. If this is the pose I'm really pushing for, right? Then I really just want it to feel like we're transitioning into that, right? So I go into here, maybe really drag it like this. Drag the arm like this. Good. Oh, yeah, go for it. Actually, let me go and, no, you're fine. So Sarit, I meant to make this announcement earlier. I want to let Sarit mention some stuff to you that I think this is a particular class that will be very excited about it. So, go for it.
CTN, some of you already heard of it. So, I send you an email, you can forward the link.
I'll put that on the.
So some of you already heard of, people who are interested in, you need to submit the form, and I forward the form to Greg will send it to you. And now, if you don't have a website, on the form it said you can put your website portfolio if you wanted to, if you have one. If you don't have, you just put your file inside a ETSQD3. Under my folder name will be a folder called CTN 2019 portfolio. Okay. So what it does is it's a conference for, especially for animator and for people who are going to the game industry. And there will be a lot of big name people who would lecture there, and you might see a new animation feature that never shown anywhere before, just a teaser. So like last year we saw the Spider-Verse, like the first time before they even had that special clip. No, we see the oh, sorry, I shouldn't stop talking about that. So, get to the point, yes. And the due date would be on this Friday, because we're gonna have to make a decision. So it's more like giving you a award for people. Get a free ticket, free conference, free hotel, but you have to pay for your own food. Okay. So, okay, if you have questions, let me know. So, you can email me also.
Actually, yeah, if you want to hold on a little bit. Anybody have questions about CTN? Anybody already considered this, interested in this, want to know what it is? Yes.
What is it? I don't know the acronym, I'm sorry.
So CTN is Creative Talent Network. It's usually concept art and animation for TV and film. So a little less representation of games, right? Like not
Actually, a lot.
Oh, really? More games? Okay. It does seem like there's a lot. It always seems to me like there's a lot of, but it's a conference out in California. Is it in Burbank?
Burbank, yes.
Burbank.
In California, yes.
So essentially, you pay your technology fee for your classes. We try to not just hoard that money and like we use that on you as well, or for things like this, like sending you on trips. So ETSU is going to pay for, is it 4 people? 4, yeah. So about 4 people to go to this trip, right? You have to pay for parts of it up front, but then basically when you get back, you submit your receipts for that, and they reimburse you for it. So if you're interested in it, basically we just want to make sure we're sending the right people who are going to get the most out of it, right? So I mean, like obviously everybody wants to go to California and get to tour like Pixar or Disney or whatever, meet people from Cartoon Network. But you're going to benefit from that much more when you're actually ready to have those conversations with those people, right? So we're wanting to what this is about is submitting the stuff that will help. Sarit's going to be the chaperone, right? I guess the reference for it. He's going to be going as well, and kind of being there to help keep everything running smoothly. This is very similar to the ECGC trip that many of you are probably familiar with. We usually take in the spring semester. So.
But bigger.
Yeah, it's a bigger trip because you have to get on an airplane. So, if you're interested though, Sarit's kind of overseeing that, but I've helped with it in the past too, so I can answer some of your questions. Thank you for reminding me about that. I don't do what?
What were the dates for? Like, what is the conference?
So I will pull that.
When November 21st to 24th. So we're probably going to leave 19. It's just because I already get so Blizzard will do a presentation. They have a lot of presentation, the video game things. And I think last year we have another big company do game. I don't really play video games, so I kind of out of the loop when they present the new game, stuff like that. But there's a lot of game actually. And now, 21st and 22nd, we will visit Disney on 21st. 22nd is Blizzard Entertainment Studio. But we might change the plan on Blizzard, but it depends on who's going.
And that's not necessarily part of the conference. That's Sarit just contacting people and saying, hey, can we come look at your studio? The conference itself will be like an expo. There'll be people on the floor from different studios. There'll also be a lot of conference talks and stuff like that. So basically, this is your opportunity to to do something pretty cool, and we're going to pay for it. Which is what we can't send all 300 digital media students, so we want to make sure that the people who are going to get the most out of that conference are the ones who are going. So, is this the information you need? I don't have a link to the form on here. Did you send me that?
I sent it to the,
Is it my other Gmail?
not Gmail, ETSU.
This is what I got. Is it this one?
Maybe I do not, so I'll send it again.
Yeah. I'll post this in here, and
I'll send it again.
and then when Suri sends me the link, I'll put the link up there.
I'll send it right away.
Okay, so he'll send it here in just a second. Any other questions for Suri before he heads out about the conference? Anything you? Cool. Thank you for reminding me as well. So, and I need to mark this as unread so I can. Actually, no. I think that's good. So I posted this in the news section about that, and once he gets me that other information, I'll post that in here as well. It'll basically just be the link to how to apply. And the way you apply is it's a Google form that you fill out. I will say usually, like on these things, we prioritize people, juniors and seniors over like freshmen and sophomore, mainly because freshmen and sophomores will get the chance to do it next year, right? We do this trip almost every year. The same with ECGC. So, but apply anyway. You never know. Like there may be no seniors who apply, and we take a whole bunch of sophomores and juniors, right? There'll probably be some seniors who apply. Yeah, but still apply anyway. Every semester we go, or every year we go when they have this conference, and it's a really cool opportunity. So. Yeah, I'm glad he remembered, or he came by to remind me of that, because I had it on my to-do list and just jumped right in. So anybody have any questions about any of that? Also, if there's something you're interested in, like we set aside a portion of the budget for things like that. I mean, obviously we're setting it aside for buying new computers, for buying, things that you'll need, Cintiq pens, like VR headsets. Like we set money aside for that, but a portion of it is set aside for student travel and research, right? So if there's like a conference you're interested in going to, we go to ECGC, we go to CTN, we've gone to GDC, we've gone to SIGGRAPH. So there's a lot of different conferences out there. If there's something you're interested in, this is kind of like is the right word, the onus? Like the onus is on you to like say, hey, that's something I would like to do. We heard there's digital media money to do that, right? And just sort of making a proposal and saying, I would like to take 5 people to Austin, Texas to a really famous film festival. I'm sure there's a famous film festival in Austin, right? So like any of that stuff you're interested in doing, come to us about it. Like there's budget set aside for that. So, any questions about any of that? That was a nice little break from the monotonous walk cycle lecture. Yes. If you have questions about it though, like I kind of helped set up CTN's trip last year, so let me know and I can get you in touch with them, and hopefully he'll send me that updated link here in a second. So I'll just leave this open. All right. So where are we at right now? Flips through. So now we're getting our it's drag down. So this is our down pose, right? Character goes down. I'm going to go ahead and drag this pose way back too. I'm really digging this like exaggerated a lot, right? Like that's one of the fun things about like I can't really do this very well in 3D, right? This is a really nice little benefit of this. So I'm all right with how that's looking. I think let's go ahead and hit play. But you'll see how it feels like there's like a little like right in the middle of it that feels off, right? So let's go ahead and I think the only thing I really need information-wise on the body is the location. So I'm just going to copy that again. So we'll go copy cell from timeline, and I'll paste it over here too on this side. Paste cells from timeline. That gives us kind of our height dip, right, on the up and down. And then I can sort of minimize this, hit F6 to get a keyframe on everything, expand it back out, and go ahead and start posing this to get some of the stuff I had before, which is really just like kicking up on both sides of the arms back here. Right? So I'm really going to kick that up pretty high. Same with this foot. Now my contact here though, like remember that's where we go to our down pose, that bent knee. And I want that to feel like that kind of lines up a little bit with my contact pose, right? My down. So if that's my contact, the down needs to feel like it's kind of lining up with that. Right now it really doesn't to me. It feels like it goes down too low. So get that back up there where that's at. Something like that. You know what that might actually mean? That might actually mean I actually want to change my contact pose to be a little bit more like this too. And I am going to rotate my foot just a little bit, a little flatter. I'm not 100% happy with where this leg, well, I don't know. I may change this contact pose on the leg too. Just so I get a better, wish I could lock that, better pose. I'm going to lower that down and copy that keyframe. There we go. There we go, that's feeling a little better. Let's see how this is looking. That's not bad. I feel like I missed something here on my down pose with the other arm. Yeah, I think I can exaggerate my back arm just a little bit more too. Something like this. Maybe a little more of a rotation. And there we go. Let's hit play on this. Okay, what's missing now is my up pose. And again, I think this for me is really where it all just clicks, it all falls together, because like we have the down without the up, and it just feels like she kind of has this bop right in the middle, right? It's a little dip. This will sort of clear up the arc a little bit more. So we'll put it like right about there, maybe. I'm gonna have to shift some of these keyframes around here in a minute anyway. So select the body, select right there, F6, puts a keyframe on everything. And this is where I mess up the body again by moving it up in the air. Nope, that's the eyes. Body. Moving that up. So this is the highest pose, right? So you'll see that this is neutral, it goes down, it starts going back up, and then this is the highest pose that our character's at. And I want to go ahead and move that even higher. Maybe something like that. Okay, and so now I can go ahead and start posing some of this stuff to feel like it's. So again, I want that to feel like that leg is kind of moving straight across. And I want this leg to feel like it's kind of dragging along behind, right? If this is the pose before it, I want it to feel like it's sort of dragging up to this next pose here, which would be something like this. Actually, I like this pose, this new drawing on this foot for this pose too. So I'll go ahead and expand that out and find that with the right foot again. And I'll just keep that drawing extended even longer. So maybe something like that, right? That's a good switch point. So let's see how it looks. All right. Maybe my contact pose is just a touch too extreme. There we go. I can work some of this out in the legs again, like sort of detail-wise. That's feeling a little bit better. And for me, I want to still make sure that the arms kind of carry through in an interesting way. Like right now, that arm is not. Like that's just boring right there. So my next pose is that. My previous pose was that. So this needs to be kind of interesting too. So I'll sort of bend to it like this, maybe flip it through. See how hard that hits. A little too hard, I think. I also maybe kind of move that arm down, maybe. That feels like that just needs to be extended more. There we go. So what I don't have is my up pose over here, right? Again, I'll probably go ahead and select the body's up pose. Copy cells. I'll go ahead and paste that in here. But then the rest of it, I'm going to kind of have to manually do. So again, this is the up pose. This is that leg still kind of pushing back, kind of traveling this straight line at that point. So I want to make sure something like that. Up pose. It's really kind of crazy. Feels like I'm losing some volume there. Let's do something like that. And then my arms. Yeah, this is sort of the one I've been waiting for. I really want to swing this out like that. Get a really big arc on that, right? So I want to extend it out on this one too. And just go ahead and copy that. And then this other arm, it's dragging back this way, and again, it's being boring. So let's go ahead and do like this. Work it down so it can flip out to there too. Now again, we can still in between this more here in a minute, but this is where I'm at right now. Let's go ahead and look at it. Okay. So there's still some issues with it. Couple of things is my inability to do math, right? And you'll notice that this is not a very symmetrical walk cycle in terms of the length, right? Like the distance between the keyframes. And so I'm going to redistribute those a little bit, but that's why this is really cool, because if I minimize this all the way back up to body, I can just shift these keyframes to get this to feel a little bit more evenly spaced. Right? Yes?
Is that gonna mess up where you did the feet?
It will mess it up in the way that that frame will change at a slightly different point of where the animation is, but I'm not shifting those keyframes as long as as long as I minimize this and I'm only dragging these dots, those keyframes shouldn't be affected, but just to make sure I've locked that layer too.
Okay.
So again, contact down, passing up, contact, that's frame 18, so that should be on frame 16, shouldn't it? Oh, no. So we got 3. Okay, so this isn't cycling perfect. I'm going to go one more frame out here and extend that one more. I'll also have to hit F5 on any layers that are locked floor. Extend that a further. And so now I have 3 in-betweens in between each of those steps, right? If I wanted to be a little peppier, maybe I'd have 2. Okay. So, again, contact down, passing up, contact down, passing up, contact, right? So I know what these are now. I can go in there and tweak them to make them better if I want to. Like for me, I think I need some more body motion in this, right? I need that body to deform a little bit more. I think on the down, I kind of want it to, let me go ahead and save this first because this is a pretty good spot. Nope. Okay. So, like for the down, I wouldn't mind doing a little bit of like a head bobble, or maybe like this. Maybe scrunch the head just a little bit. That, right? Now if that's the down, then that means the passing, we still have to kind of continue with some of that following on through, and you see that I'm messing up my arms by doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and move those again. There we go. So now it's got a little bit more motion in it, right? For here, that's my deformer. Oh my goodness, that is not what I wanted. What now? So the cool part about that is I just made some changes to that body deformation. That is this one right here, right? On these 3 keyframes right there. Well, I could just go ahead and copy those and then paste those. So now I should have it over here too. Right? I'll have to fix the arms on it. The arms kind of mess up right there. And here. So now we're getting this. Now she's feeling a little more alive, right? Now I put a couple of deformers in her hair too. The interesting thing about that is I have all of these keyframes, but I could key those separate from the keyframes if I wanted to. I don't really want to. Let's go down here to her hair. I have it set up right here. So the small stalk, I have able to do that. The big stalk can do this. All right. And so I'm actually just going to sort of set the same keyframes on both of them, I think. So there, I'll drag them back a little bit. I'll keep dragging them back, and that way they can go past it there. So what we get is this drag and overlapping action, right? Now since I have those 2 stalks selected, I just made changes to big stalk and small stalk, these 3 keyframes. Oh, the small stalk did not have those keyframes. Delete those earlier. All right. So big stalk, small stalk, I can kind of grab those 3 again, copy those cells, paste cells. So now we get this, the hair kind of bouncing around a little bit, right? And sort of the final little thing I'm going to do to the hair is I'm going to go ahead and add some deformation in there. Now that deformation doesn't have to go across all of these keyframes if I don't want them to. So right now, it's these 2 deformations, right? If I wanted to go through and delete some of these keyframes, I could. And I can sort of simplify that a little bit. So if I wanted to do like a, let's say right here, F6, I wanted to drag these a little bit more S-shaped. Drag this one down a little bit more. So I can then I guess I could probably just do Control P, Control V, couldn't I? But just to be safe. So now I'm getting a little bit of those deformations in there. And I can always go through here and sort of break that down a little bit more. Maybe stretching this a little too much now. This is the spot where I can drag it even more. So it's going to look a little stiff right now. That's for a couple of reasons. Because everything is on our key poses, right? And you can see that, like all the keys are lining up. The reason this is going to look a little stiff is because I haven't offset anything yet, right? I also haven't done anything in the function editor, right? I know you were hoping maybe we weren't going to have to do that, but we are. I am not going to make you watch me edit every curve on this thing, but you'll have to edit every curve on yours, right? And again, like to remind you of all of that stuff, of how that works, we go into each of these nodes, right? My body node, I open that up, I go to the function editor, nothing loads up, so I have to go back here and click that body node again. And this is where we want to make sure, remember when we were rigging, I said to make sure you set everything to that separate the channels. If you didn't do that, this is not what you're going to get in here. You're going to get something completely different that's a little more confusing. So with this now, I can pretty much adjust my position Y. I didn't really do any rotation on it. So my position Y, I can go in here, set all that to smooth. So I did something like that, and then get me a cycling curve that looks hopefully pretty good. Right? And so that was just me adjusting the controls on the body. Let's see so you can't really notice that much of a difference in it yet, but it's going to start to add up, right? Now, where it's going to get a little confusing for you is these deformations, right? So you'll see if I hit this little plus sign on this deformation rig, there are all these offset nodes, right? And all of those, what is this on? This is on my character's leg. All of these offsets, the offset and the curve, have functions as well, right? We have some positions, some orientations, curves. Let's frame all of these where we can see them. I have to go back and do that again. We have to do it with all of that selected. There they are. So that's the keyframes for your translation, and your offset is sort of that angle, right, or your orientation of all of your deformers. So all of your deformers have curves as well. And again, select them all. For this, I guess we don't necessarily have to have that. We can hit that. And then just one curve at a time, we have to go through here and determine. So apparently nothing on my position Y. Nothing on my, looks like this one was only orientation. Nothing on that. So it looks like the only thing I really animated on this was in these curves. So I can do length. Let's just uncheck some of these so we can see them. You can see what I have there. And then this is where I get to control these things. Oh man. So this is a little annoying because you can't lock them. They kind of break apart either way. So it's going to be a little bit less smooth to adjust these. Kind of forgot about that. Yep. In your peg right here, it's under your layer properties, and you want to check this separate. So yeah, so we're just going to have to go through every one of these channels. It's slow, it's monotonous, it's a little boring, but we're going to do all of this to all of these different curves in order to sort of clean them up. Right? I know, again, this is not super exciting, but this is where you're going to really start seeing the animation come together in terms of quality. So I can't remember which leg I'm on right now. My position X. So let's see if I change that. Which one is this? Okay, so that's the up and down position of that, right? So this is where I can control how my leg kind of arcs. Right? So again, I'm not gonna, I said I'm not going to make you watch me do this, and then I started doing it. But actually class is pretty much over anyway. So the plan for now is you finish up your rig, you finish up your animation. We have until Monday. Does that seem doable? Okay. I'm surprised. Every day I feel like we leave class, you seem a little nervous about it, and then we come back next class, and I walk around and I see everything you have, and it's actually pretty good, right? So you may not feel like it's pretty good, but it's pretty good. So trust me, especially for how much we've done just in the last few weeks. So, and Sarit just sent me that link, so I'll go ahead and post that in the news on D2L as well. If you have any questions, yeah.
I just have a question.
Cool. Let me go ahead and class is dismissed if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and save up this video to YouTube, and then I can hop around and help anybody out that needs help.